You think the worst part is the betrayal. But it's not. It's not when someone cheats. It's when the person who used to crave your touch now acts like your skin is made of needles. When a hand on her back becomes an intrusion, not comfort. That's when you realize love didn't die with a bang. It evaporated, drop by drop, until nothing remained but the echo of who you used to be together. Her name was Claire. We were married 7 years. Had a quiet little place outside Charlotte, North Carolina. White fence, mailbox with our last name painted on it, a backyard big enough for 2 chairs, and a broken fire pit I never got around to fixing. I wasn't rich. Never tried to be. I worked HVAC, air conditioning, and heating systems. Long days, sweat-drenched summers, ice-cold winters. Claire worked at a local nonprofit. She loved saying they were changing lives. Lately, I wondered whose life was changing, because it wasn't mine. From the outside, you'd think we were fine. Bills were paid. The fridge was stocked. Sunday night takeout, Friday movie marathons. But inside that house, inside me, things were going quiet. Not in a peaceful way. In that suffocating, slow-sinking kind of way. Like standing in a room with the windows closed, realizing the air's getting thinner, and no one else seems to notice. At first, I told myself it was just a phase. Work stress, hormonal shifts, seasonal blues. Claire had always been a little withdrawn when she had too much on her plate. So I gave her space. I cooked. I folded the laundry. I'd rub her shoulders while she scrolled Instagram, hoping maybe, she'd lean into me again. But something changed. Not overnight. It was more like watching someone back away an inch at a time. You don't realize the distance until you reach for them and grasp nothing but air. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Stopped making eye contact over dinner. Hugs became sidearmed. Kisses felt like clocking in for work. I'd say, "You okay?" And she'd say, "Just tired." Always tired. Too tired to talk. Too tired to cuddle. Too tired to want me. Still I waited. Still I gave. But then came that night. It was Thursday. Late. I'd just gotten out of the crawl space fixing a leak under the kitchen. My back ached. My hands smelled like rust and mildew. But I was proud of fixing something on my own. Proud in that stupid husband way where you think, maybe she'll notice. She was already in bed, propped up on pillows, scrolling her phone. That blue screen glow lighting her face. Not warm, not inviting, just distant. Like she lived in another world I wasn't invited into. I didn't want sex. Didn't even want conversation. Just wanted to feel close. I climbed into bed, exhaled, turned off the lamp, and gently laid my hand on her waist. She flinched. It wasn't big, just a small pull away, like my fingers were cold. But it was enough. And then, quietly, under her breath, she muttered, "Not tonight, please. Don't start. Don't start." Like I was picking a fight. Like I was some stray dog begging for food at her doorstep. I didn't speak. Didn't move. Just laid there in the dark, eyes wide open, feeling something inside me quietly collapse. She didn't say another word. Just kept scrolling. A few minutes later, she turned over, her back to me, her silence louder than any scream. And that was the night something snapped. Not the love. Not yet. But the belief. The belief that maybe things could go back. The hope that all she needed was time. Because it wasn't about that night. It was about every night leading up to it. The missed smiles. The flat tone in her voice. The way she only touched me when she needed help zipping up a dress or carrying groceries. That was when I realized. She didn't see me anymore. She saw someone she used to love, maybe. Now just background noise. A roommate with a shared mortgage. But you don't leave right away. You don't pack a bag after one cold shoulder. Because part of you still clings to the myth. Maybe tomorrow she'll remember how to love me. So I stayed. Another night. Then another. But something shifted in me. And shifts, they don't always come with a fight. Sometimes they come with silence. After that night, I stopped trying. Not all at once. Not in some big, dramatic gesture. Just less. Less, "How was your day?" Less reaching for her hand. Less hoping. I still made coffee in the morning. Still paid the water bill. Still cleared the leaves from the gutter when they piled up. But something inside me wasn't showing up anymore. My heart clocked out. And what was left was just the echo of a man going through the motions. Claire didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and didn't want to admit it. She still walked past me in the hallway without touching my arm. Still answered my good night with a distracted nod. Still laughed louder with her coworkers on the phone than she ever did with me. She had this way of smiling at them, wide, unfiltered, and then turning to me like I was a lamp in the corner. necessary, but unremarkable. The worst part wasn't the coldness. It was the consistency of it. You can adapt to a chill, but numbness? That creeps up on you. I started staying longer at work. Not because I had to, because I didn't want to go home. I'd take the long way, grab a beer at the dive bar on 6th, sit at the counter, and stare at the TVs with no sound on. No one asked questions there. No one looked at me like I was disappearing. Some nights, I'd sit in my truck in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. Lights off. Engine running. Just staring at the house, trying to remember when it last felt like home. It's funny what you can get used to. A cold dinner. A cold bed. A colder silence. But then came the shift. She started noticing. Not with concern. Not with empathy. With suspicion. You're working late again? You didn't cook tonight? You seem off. Like I was the one changing things. Like I was suddenly the ghost in our home. But I didn't argue. Didn't explain. Didn't say, "No, Claire, I've just run out of ways to be ignored." I just nodded. Shrugged. Said, "Just tired." The same words she'd thrown at me for months. Only difference? I meant it. By the time autumn rolled in, I wasn't even pretending anymore. I'd mastered the art of the polite nod, the neutral tone, the strategically timed absence. I became less of a husband and more of a background character in my own life, present but not alive. And she didn't fight it. Not really. We started living like two people renting the same space. Not partners. Not friends. Just two names on a mortgage agreement, orbiting each other with the sort of caution you use around a sleeping animal you don't want to wake. She'd still ask, "You want anything from the store?" And I'd say, "No, I'm good," even if I wasn't. We'd still sit through a whole episode of some show we'd once watched religiously, both of us on our phones, neither one laughing. We looked like a couple, but it was just the shell. The core was long gone. There was a moment, small, insignificant on the surface, that hit harder than all the silence combined. She bought a new candle. That's it. A candle. She lit it one evening while I was sitting on the couch. It smelled like pine and something floral I couldn't name. And she said, casually, like she was talking to no one in particular, "This scent reminds me of Vermont." Vermont. Our honeymoon. A tiny cabin by a lake, red and orange leaves falling into the water, her head on my chest by the fire. She said it with no trace of memory in her voice. No warmth. Just data. And I realized something. I was the only one keeping the history alive. She wasn't forgetting. She was deleting. There was a box in the closet. Photos. Letters. Anniversary cards we'd written each other. Once, I caught her stuffing a few of them into a drawer like they embarrassed her. It hit me harder than it should have. Not because I wanted her to cry over our memories, but because I wanted them to matter. Even if we were breaking, I wanted to believe it had been real. But the way she moved, like she was already gone, told me everything I needed to know. I started hitting the gym harder. Not out of vanity. Out of necessity. I needed to feel sore. I needed to feel something. Heavy lifts. Early mornings. Miles on the treadmill. I changed my diet, cut out booze, started sleeping on the couch by default. She never asked why. Never protested. And I think that was the answer. No resistance. No sadness. Just acceptance, like she was relieved I was finally making it easier to let go. There's a moment in every crumbling relationship where the roles reverse. One person gives everything, the other takes it for granted. Then, slowly, the giver stops giving. And suddenly the taker starts to notice the weight of what they never had to carry before. I wasn't cruel. I didn't raise my voice. But I stopped showing up emotionally. No more checking in during the day. No more surprise coffee runs. No more light touches on the back as I passed her in the hallway. Just distance. Clean, quiet, growing distance. And when you do that long enough, you start to forget what it was like to be close. You look in the mirror and see a ghost. And what hurts more than losing someone is realizing you already lost yourself trying to keep them. It's strange how you can plan your escape from a place you once begged to stay. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't draw up timelines or create checklists. It wasn't that kind of escape. It was internal first, a retreat that started in the soul. One day, I just stopped asking her if she'd be home for dinner. Then I stopped cooking altogether. I didn't delete the shared calendar. I just stopped looking at it. She'd ask, "What do you want to do this weekend?" And I'd say, "Whatever you want," knowing full well we wouldn't do anything. It was a script. I was just reading my lines. And then came the mornings I left before she woke up. At first, it was the gym. Then it was the park. Then, sometimes, I'd just drive with no direction, sip at gas station coffee, and sit in parking lots where no one knew me. Places where I didn't have to pretend I was okay. There was a woman who worked the early shift at the gym desk. Her name was Nadia. We rarely spoke. Just polite nods and have a good one. She had kind eyes. That was it. And still, I found myself looking forward to that 10-second interaction more than any hour I spent at home. Not because I wanted to cheat. Not because I was chasing anything. Just because I missed being seen. At home, I'd walk into a room and Claire wouldn't even look up. Or if she did, it was with that expression you give to a slow-loading app. Mild irritation. Impatience. So I became more silent. Moved slower. Took up less space. She didn't ask me how I was sleeping. Didn't ask if something was wrong. And when I finally moved my stuff into the guest room for better rest, she didn't follow. Didn't knock. Just adjusted. And that was the part that stung, not the pain, but the ease. You think when someone loves you, they'll fight the drift. They'll anchor you. They'll rage against the distance. But Claire just let it happen. I'd lie in the guest bed some nights and wonder what she thought of me. If she thought of me at all. Was I just a failed promise now? A checklist item she regretted ticking off too early? It's the wondering that kills you. Because even when they stop talking, your heart keeps asking questions. In mine, it was getting quieter. I didn't leave, not yet. But I started saying goodbye in invisible ways. I stopped buying her favorite snacks when I went to the store. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped offering to fix the little things around the house. Not to punish. Just because I was done trying to earn something that should have never required effort. You shouldn't have to audition for love that once was freely given. The day I knew for sure, really knew, was a Sunday. We were in the same room for hours. She on her laptop, me on mine. Not one word exchanged. Not even a glance. And I realized we weren't even strangers. Strangers acknowledge each other. We were nothing. And nothing is the heaviest thing I've ever carried. There's a lie people love to believe about breakups, that they're loud, explosive, shattering. But the truth is, most breakups don't sound like anything at all. Most of the time, it's not a slammed door or a shouted insult. It's a bowl left in the sink. A text left unanswered. A gaze that floats right past you. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one morning, coffee in my hand, the sound of the fridge humming behind me. Claire came downstairs, tied her hair up, walked right past me. Didn't say a word. Didn't even glance at me. I waited. Waited for a simple good morning. It never came. I watched her pour almond milk into her smoothie like I wasn't even there. And in that moment, I knew I was already gone. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just felt light. Not in a good way. In the way you feel when you've already dropped everything heavy, but your hands are still shaped for holding. That afternoon, I drove around for hours. I didn't even know where I was going. Just looped the same roads, stopped at the lake where we once picnicked, and stared at the water. Flat. Still. Like it had no memory of us. I went home that evening and didn't speak. Neither did she. We coexisted in that house like furniture. Like things placed near each other out of design, not affection. And I realized something. I wasn't waiting for her to change anymore. I was waiting for myself to accept it. And that's what made it real. Not some fight. Not catching her with someone else. Not a final insult that tipped it all over. It was the absence. The stillness. The way she didn't notice when I stopped saying I love you. And when someone doesn't miss your love, it means they stopped needing it long ago. So I made a quiet vow to myself. No more pretending. No more holding on for two. I started moving pieces. Little ones. A drawer here. A box there. Things I wouldn't miss and knew she wouldn't notice. I didn't want her to beg me to stay. I just wanted to leave without turning it into a war. Because when a man finally chooses peace over pain, there's no more discussion to be had. Just the sound of his own footsteps walking away from a version of himself he's no longer willing to be. There's always a last time, but you almost never know it when it's happening. The last time you sit together on a couch. The last time she asks you to pass the salt. The last time her name shows up on your phone and you feel something other than dread. For me, the last time we felt remotely like a couple was on a Tuesday. Nothing remarkable about it. We ate leftovers. Chicken and rice. She asked if I'd seen her charger. I said I hadn't. She nodded. That was it. But something in me paused, this strange ache in my chest that said, this is it. This is the last, normal day you two will ever share. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I watched her walk out of the room and knew I was done waiting for a sign. I didn't need a catastrophe. I didn't need proof. I had silence. I had enough. I started packing the next morning. Not in boxes, in choices. I pulled some cash from our joint account and opened my own. I called an old buddy, Eric, who had a spare room and didn't ask too many questions. I made a list of what I'd take, what I'd leave. And every night that week, I came home and looked at Claire with a calm so cold it scared me. She didn't know I was leaving, but I did. And that changed everything. I watched her laugh at a show we used to binge together and felt nothing. I listened to her hum while she cooked and realized I didn't know the tune anymore. I slept in the guest room but started dreaming in past tense. And on Friday morning, I woke up and didn't feel heavy. Didn't feel hopeful either. Just ready. I left while she was at work. One gym bag. Some clothes. A toothbrush. No note. No fight. No goodbye. Just a decision. And that was the thing I'd been chasing for months, not her love, not her attention. Just the freedom to choose myself without apology. And in that quiet moment, walking out our front door for the last time, I didn't feel like a coward. I felt like a man coming home to himself. I thought walking out would be the end. But endings are rarely that clean. You leave the house, sure. But pieces of you stay behind. In the coffee mugs. In the drawer you used to organize just so. In the silence after your name isn't spoken anymore. The first night away, I stayed at Eric's. He gave me a beer and didn't ask for a story. That was the kindest thing anyone could have done for me. I sat on his old couch, the one that creaked when you shifted, and stared at the ceiling like it owed me something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was empty. And for once, the emptiness felt better than begging to be seen. I turned off my phone, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't want the gravity of her voice pulling me back into something I'd already left. When I turned it back on the next morning, the messages were already waiting. Claire, where are you? Claire, can we talk? Claire, is this really happening? I didn't answer, because if I did, I'd be pulled into a conversation, and conversations with Claire had become tools of delay, not healing. She needed to feel the absence, the kind I'd felt every night in that house while she stared at her screen and acted like I didn't exist. And she did. The calls came more often. The text changed tone, from annoyed to confused to panicked. Claire, I know I've been distant. I didn't realize how far it had gone. Claire, please just tell me if you're safe. Claire, I miss you. I didn't think I would, but I do. I miss you so much it hurts. It was the first honest sentence I'd heard from her in over a year, but I still didn't reply. Because love isn't a switch you flip when you realize the room's gone dark. She had her chance. Hundreds of them. All those nights I reached for her and got a shoulder instead of a hand. All those mornings I made her coffee while she scrolled past me like I was furniture. Now she was tasting the silence she used to serve. And it wasn't vengeance. It was justice. You don't get to ignore someone's heart and then demand its rhythm back. I went for long walks those first few days. Miles without direction. Let the wind sting my cheeks and the sun remind me I still existed. And for the first time in months, I started talking to myself again. Not out loud. Not in words. But in awareness. You're healing, I'd think. You did the right thing. This pain isn't punishment. It's the space where growth begins. And as much as she started to unravel on the other side, I started to rebuild. Quietly. Privately. Without permission. Because some resurrections don't need witnesses. Just time. And the will to not go back to where you drowned. By the third night, the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was raw. A kind of soreness that lives in your bones, where loneliness settles like fog. I stared at the ceiling for hours. Eric had passed out early, a football game humming on the muted TV. I lay there, headphones in, listening to nothing, just so I wouldn't hear my own breathing. I thought about going back, not to stay, just to look. Just to see if she'd changed the sheets. If she noticed the shoes I didn't bring. If she cried. But I didn't go. Because I wasn't ready to see that house hold itself together without me. Instead, I started running again. Every morning at 6. No music. Just the rhythm of my shoes on pavement and the thoughts I couldn't turn off. What if I had stayed? What if I had spoken louder? What if I had left earlier? The what-ifs are louder than regret. They're possibilities you can still feel in your hands. Even if they've already vanished. Claire messaged again on day 4. Claire, I saw your tools are gone. I know you're serious. But please, don't do this like this. I almost replied. Almost. But then I remembered the dozens of nights I sat in the living room, asking her to just talk to me, and getting shrugs in return. That was the problem. She only spoke when she felt fear. Not love. Not connection. Just fear of losing something she hadn't nurtured in years. And I couldn't reward that anymore. On the 5th day, Eric and I grabbed burgers after work. He asked if I was okay. I lied. I said I was fine. That it felt good. He didn't believe me. But he didn't press. And I was thankful for that. Because the truth? I was grieving something that hadn't existed for a long time. I was mourning the version of her I used to know, not the woman she had become. Claire used to be light. She used to lean into me at parties, whisper jokes no one else could hear. She used to leave me notes on the fridge that said, "Thinking of you," or "Kick today's ass." That woman had vanished long before I did. Now I was just catching up. By the end of the first week, the silence became sacred. I stopped checking my phone, turned off social media. I deleted her photo from my home screen. And for the first time in a long time, I sat with myself. Really sat. Not to escape, not to numb out, but to take inventory. Who am I without her? What do I want now? What did I learn from losing what I thought was forever? The answers didn't come easy. They still haven't. But they're coming. And I know this. I'm not going back. Because once you've felt what it's like to be invisible in someone else's life, you never want to disappear like that again. Even if they suddenly remember you. Even if they finally see you. Some realizations come too late. And some men don't wait around to be remembered. They build something new. From the silence. From the pain. From the ashes of what they were willing to give and never got back. By the second week, the silence stopped being quiet. It started knocking. She found out where I was staying. Don't ask me how. Maybe she checked my phone records. Maybe she guessed. Either way, I came home one evening to Eric's place and found her car parked half a block down like she didn't want to be obvious. She was sitting on the steps. Hair a mess. Hoodie too big for her frame. Eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. When I walked up, she stood. Didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me like she was trying to recognize the man who used to kiss her forehead every night. "Can we talk?" she said, voice barely above a whisper. I stood there a second too long, then nodded. We didn't go inside. I didn't invite her in. We just walked, side by side, down the block and back. She asked how I'd been. I said fine. She nodded like she believed me, but I knew she didn't. Then came the apology. Not loud, not dramatic, just a soft crumble. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think you'd ever leave. I thought we were just in a rut. I thought you'd wait until I figured it out. I stopped walking. "Claire," I said calmly, "you didn't notice me leave emotionally for a year. Why is it only now that it matters?" She looked down, started crying. The kind of crying that shakes your shoulders but doesn't make a sound. I didn't reach for her. I didn't comfort her. Because for the first time, I understood something painful and clear. You can forgive someone and still not go back. You can love who they used to be and still not like who they became. We stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, two people who once shared everything, now unable to finish a sentence. "I miss you," she whispered. I didn't answer, because I knew what she missed wasn't me. It was the version of me that stayed no matter what. The one who folded laundry and cooked dinner and reached for her even when she pulled away. That man was gone, and I wasn't sure I wanted him back either. We walked back in silence. She got into her car, turned the key, sat there a minute, then drove off. And just like that, the ghost had knocked and found the door locked. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt released. Not because she hurt, but because I finally didn't. But silence is a habit. And even after you break free, echoes follow. That night, I lay awake for hours. Not from doubt, from weight. The weight of history, of memory, of the hundreds of small things we once did without thinking. I remembered the way she used to dance in the kitchen when her favorite song came on. How she'd tug my hand when she wanted me to spin her. How we laughed over spilled wine and burned toast and Sunday mornings tangled in old blankets. They say nostalgia is a liar. It only remembers the sweetness. But I remembered everything. I remembered the months she stopped touching me. The dinners eaten in silence. The emotional shrug she gave when I begged for connection. I wasn't romanticizing. I was mourning. Not for her, but for us. For what we lost. For what we stopped protecting. The next day she texted, "Claire, I meant what I said. I know it doesn't change anything. I just needed you to hear it." I stared at the message for a while. And then I typed, "Me, I know. And I heard you." That was it. Nothing more. Because closure doesn't need paragraphs. Sometimes it just needs honesty. Over the next few weeks, I got better at silence. Not the kind that hurts, the kind that heals. I got a place of my own. Small. Second floor walk-up. Nothing special. But it was mine. I bought a couch. A real one. Put a plant on the windowsill. Started cooking for myself again. Not out of routine, out of care. And slowly, the shape of my life stopped resembling the shadow of what we had. It became its own thing. New. Unfamiliar. But growing. Claire messaged a few more times. Short things. Questions without questions. How are you? Hope you're doing okay. Thought of you when I passed the old diner. I answered once or twice. Short. Kind. Distant. Not because I hated her, but because I respected myself. I started seeing a therapist. Eric suggested it. First session, I barely talked. Second session, I didn't shut up. Turns out, I had a lot to unpack. Not just her. Me. The way I gave too much without asking anything in return. The way I measured love by what I could endure. The way I let silence convince me I was hard to love. Turns out, I wasn't. I just forgot that love isn't supposed to be a performance. It's supposed to be a place to rest. And Claire, she stopped being a safe place a long time ago. One Saturday, I went back to that park where she first confronted me. I sat on a bench alone this time. No Ava. No Claire. Just me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like half of something broken. I felt whole. I watched a little boy chase bubbles across the grass. A couple nearby passed a water bottle back and forth. The breeze smelled like spring. And I realized I made it. Not to happiness. Not yet. But to peace. And peace, after all that noise, is its own kind of miracle. Grief has strange timing. You think you've passed it. You think you've done the crying, the aching, the long nights staring at ceilings like they hold answers. You think you've grieved enough. But then something small reminds you, you're still healing. For me, it was a jacket. I was digging through a box I hadn't unpacked, looking for old tax forms. Instead, I pulled out the denim jacket Claire bought me 2 Christmases ago. It still had her scent on it. That soft, clean, vaguely citrus scent I used to bury my face in without even thinking. I sat down on the edge of my bed and held it like it was breakable. And that's when I cried. Not the bitter kind. Not angry. Just slow. Quiet. Like my body needed to let something go that my mind had already made peace with. Because that's how healing works. Your soul moves on before your skin does. Your spirit knows long before your memory catches up. But the tears didn't wreck me. They freed me. I folded the jacket. Didn't throw it away. Didn't burn it. Just folded it. Gently. And placed it in the back of the closet. Not out of denial, out of respect. Because it had meant something once. Because it deserved to be honored, but no longer carried. In therapy, I started talking about my parents. About how I was raised to endure. How pushing through was praised, and asking for what you needed was framed as selfish. And I realized I brought that same training into our marriage. I thought loving someone meant holding on no matter what. I thought being a man meant absorbing the silence, the distance, the withdrawal, and staying anyway. But I've learned love isn't proven by what you can survive. It's proven by what you choose to protect and who chooses to protect you back. Claire didn't protect us. Not for a long time. And I didn't protect myself until it was too late. But knowing that, saying it out loud, that's when I started to forgive myself. Weeks turned into months. The text stopped coming. The dream stopped, too. I started sleeping through the night. Waking up without that heavy chest. I filled my apartment with music. Bought records again. Started painting, something I hadn't done since college. I joined a community gym. Went to one of those early morning classes with people twice my age and 3 times as energetic. And I smiled again. For no reason. At nothing in particular. Just because I could. There were still quiet nights. Still moments when I'd hear a song and remember her laugh. Or see a couple at the grocery store and feel a twinge of something that used to be mine. But those moments didn't break me. They passed through me. Like wind. Like weather. Just passing. One day, I got a message from a mutual friend. Hey, Claire told me she's moving. Starting fresh in Portland. Just thought you'd want to know. And I did. Not out of jealousy. Not out of pain. Just to close the final chapter. She was starting over. So was I. Different places. Different pages. Same lesson. Let go of what no longer reaches for you. There's a word I learned in therapy. It's called afterlight. It means the light that lingers after the sun has set. That soft, fading glow that reminds you the day was real. That you were there. That you lived it. That's what Claire became to me. Afterlight. Not the sun. Not the fire. Just the echo of warmth that taught me how much light I still had left to give to myself, to someone new, to whatever comes next. And I'm ready for next now. Really ready. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've finally remembered who I am when I'm not trying to be everything for someone who no longer sees me. That's the real healing. When you no longer chase the ghost. When you no longer beg the silence to turn into sound. When you no longer wait for the door to open again. Because you've already walked through your own. And closed it, gently. From the other side. It started on a Wednesday. The sun rose soft and golden through the blinds in my apartment, not the place I escaped to, but the home I built afterward. I made coffee. No soundtrack, no news in the background. Just the quiet click of the machine and the smell of something warm becoming mine. There was no ache in my chest, no heaviness in my limbs. Just breath. Even. Unhurried. Present. I sat at the small kitchen table, the one I picked out myself, and opened a notebook. No agenda. Just a blank page and a pen. I wrote 4 words. I'm not broken anymore. And I believed it. I still carried memories, sure. But they weren't weights anymore. They were stories. Markers of who I had been and how far I'd come. Every scar had a chapter. Every silence had taught me something. I had learned how to speak gently to myself. How to say no without guilt. How to be alone without being lonely. I learned that love isn't a transaction. It's not earned through exhaustion or bought with self-neglect. It's shared, given, returned. And maybe I hadn't found it again, not yet. But I had found something better first, wholeness. Because if you can't be whole alone, you'll bleed all over someone else hoping they patch the cracks. Later that day, I ran into someone. Her name was Eliza. She was standing in front of the bookstore, trying to balance 3 paper bags and a cup of tea that kept tipping sideways. I caught it before it spilled. She laughed. I swear I need an assistant just to make it back to my car. I smiled. Or at least 1 less paperback. We talked for 2 minutes. Maybe 3. She didn't remind me of Claire. She didn't remind me of anyone. She was just present. And so was I. That night, I didn't overthink it. I didn't spiral. I just smiled at the thought of her laugh and went to bed peacefully. That's what real healing gives you, not fireworks. Just peace where the panic used to live. Months passed. I saw Eliza again. Then again. And then on purpose. We talked about books. Life. Grief. Laughter. One night, as we were walking back from a late dinner, she reached for my hand. And I let her. Not because I needed to be saved. Not because I was lonely. But because I was ready. I still think of Claire sometimes. Not with pain. Not with longing. Just with recognition. She was part of the road that led me here. A necessary chapter. Not the ending. Not the villain. Just a page. And maybe that's the best we can ask for, to live a life where the echoes don't rule us. Where the ghosts knock, and we don't answer. Where the silence is ours to fill, not fear. I don't know what comes next. But I know who's walking into it. And for the first time in a long time, he's not looking back.